welcome to Mind Mastery for Health. Thanks for joining. And yeah, I'm going to share with you in terms of some great insight that I've learned over the past year around really transcending your health through transcending your thinking. So that's what I'm going to be sharing today. I look forward to sharing this with you. I've made up a couple of mind maps, which I'll share, which hopefully really helps me articulate the message across to you. And it's really essentially transcending your thinking. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into this webinar here. So we share the screen and we're going to go here. Here we go. So here's a picture of the mind. Okay. So here you can see there's a few areas here that are being highlighted. It's essentially the limbic center, which is our emotional center, or also known as the desire center. So here we've got the hippocampus, which is our memory, and a memory associated with very emotive events. So when we have something of extreme joy or elation, we remember it in our hippocampus because it essentially, in terms of the desire center, we want the pursuit of more of that essentially elates us and it enlightens us. So it's essentially like us achieving prey. So we're actually gaining prey. So it's very much that elation for the kill, and you get the kill and you get excited about taking it back to the families to eat, as opposed to ending up missing the kill and not having anything and going back empty-handed. And those people that fish would probably relate to that, leaving home early morning and then going out to fish all day or all morning and then coming back empty-handed. So essentially, when we get elated or joyed in terms of what's happened to us, it creates a memory and association. And likewise, if it's an extreme emotion of sadness because we haven't caught the fish and we're going home empty-handed, it too may well be stored in the hippocampus as, okay, maybe I don't go to that fishing spot next time, or maybe I look at a different time of the day, or essentially I need to look at a new bait or new rod or new rig or something. So something needs to change in order for the result to change, or it could just be you're a bit unlucky that day. Or essentially, this area is the area that we seek to avoid things too. So it's pain and pleasure center. So I mentioned the pleasure side of things when we experience joy and elation, but it's also the area which we essentially want to avoid pain. So it's where we run away from these things that we don't like, that we don't want in our life, things that we resent, dislike. And so these will also be stored in memory. So any event where you perceived massive amount of trauma or negativity associated with it, then it will be stored in the hippocampus to keep us in that survival mode. So essentially, when we come and get those cues that we could be under threat again, so any sensory information that comes in, it could be a smell, it could be a sight, it could be something we hear, it will trigger this sympathetic nervous system to get us into fight, flight, or freeze mode. And so that's why we have the hippocampus, because it's next to the amygdala. The amygdala is our fear center, also the desire center. So it's fearing things that we want to avoid, and it's also fearing the loss of not getting that prey. And it's also in that area of desire that we seek things that we want and we get elated when we get them, or essentially we get away from that tiger. And that's also a time to be jubilant and elated because we're away from the tiger. So so you've got the hippocampus, which I highlighted here, and then I spoke about the amygdala, which is about an almond size, the size of an almond, so very small, but it runs our emotions and it runs our fear, our fight flight response, and it will essentially turn everything on that hyperdrive to get you away from the threat, or essentially get you closer towards getting the prey. So yes, it's this area that typically runs a lot of our lives, which I can understand back in the day when we were out in the bush and we did have tigers and we had major threats to our lives. But today we don't have those threats. Tigers aren't around us, lions aren't around us. We're well and truly away from them. We have shelter, we can lock the doors. We're pretty safe these days relative to where we've come from. However, we still carry this desire center or this fear center with us, and we can allow it to run us, or we can essentially get on top of it and govern it and turn it on, or allow it to run us when need be, such as a car's coming towards us, or we're under threat by something and we need to run away. Then absolutely, we want this center to run us. And that's our, I guess, our auto response that will just, but the thing is today, we're allowing this auto response, this autonomic nervous system, this sympathetic fight or flight to run our lives. And we want to get back into the governance, and particularly around health, because if this emotional center is running our lives and we're constantly running away from things or constantly running towards things and going from one pole to another and swinging between both areas, our health is also going, it's been pushed to the extremes. We're well out of balance when we're in constant pursuit of something that we think we want, but we don't really want it. But we think that if I get it, then I'll fit in better in society. So you're not really being you. You're trying to impress someone or wearing a mask to, just essentially fulfill someone else's values and not fulfill yours. So what today's talk about is about how to get out of this amygdala running us, or this emotional center running us, this desire center or fear center running us, how to transcend your thinking. So this is where we get into some awesome diagrams. So I've got this Venn diagram here, 3 circles. So let me explain the circles first. So the yellow on this side is essentially the side where we're putting on our proud side. We're very proud about this. Okay. So we're elevating ourselves. We're popping ourselves up. We're putting ourselves on a pedestal. So this is this side, and this is that elation, that extreme joy. And then we have the center here, which is essentially the true self, the authentic self. And then on the other side, so we've got the orange being the authentic center. And then on the other circle is our shame side, or the side that we're not proud of, the side that we want to disown, essentially. We're too proud to admit it, that we have it. And we're essentially not owning it. And essentially what we are is both. We have both sides of us. And to integrate you and to become the authentic and best version of you and the healthiest version of you, we need to go on a journey to learn to love both sides of you, so that you can love the whole you and not have disowned parts and parts that you dislove. Because essentially it's those disowned parts and those parts that you don't love about yourself are projected onto others. And that's what you don't like about the other person, is something that you're not liking about you. So in this exercise of transcending your thinking, essentially you can love you for who you are, the whole you, and be very fulfilled. And then the rest of the world's going to, you'll just be total reflective awareness of that everyone else is just you. Because you see all the parts, and you can love them for who they are because you've loved yourself for who you are. And this is when we're in a pure state of being centered and poised. We're grateful for the people in our lives, the people around us. We love the people around us. We love people for who they are, and it's unconditional love. So this is the center for wellness, when you're being you, okay? It is when your body is going to be most resilient, most adaptable. It's going to have the highest heart rate variability, which is what we're measuring a lot these days with Oura rings and Apple watches and whatnot, Google watches. Essentially, they take in data. It's about your ability for your heart to change and be adaptable to the environment. And so when we're, I guess, very proud, or extremely sorrowful or shameful, then our heart rate variability is low, because essentially our heart is stuck in that rhythm. It is just in a rhythm that is not, I guess, responding to the environment responsively. And essentially, when we're in a poised state, a centered state, you're being you. Essentially, you've got this highest amount of heart rate variability, where you can swing to where your body needs you to swing. Essentially, if you need to quickly get across the road, you'll be able to quickly get across the road. If you need to quieten down and be still and be peaceful, you'll be able to do that very quickly. It won't take hours to wind down, for example. So essentially, this center is where we own both sides of us. And let's look at some of this, I guess, the labels that are placed on either side. And essentially, this side is considered the very positive side. Okay, it's the state of which where it's perceived that if you're proud, then associated with that is happiness. However, we know we have both sides of us. We know at times we are happy, but at times we are sad, and that is loving and owning both sides of life, as opposed to having a one-sided view and perspective on life, which is essentially futile, because life is a whole, right? It comes, there's pain and pleasure. Okay, there's pleasures you've experienced in life, there's pain that you've experienced in life. It's when we accept both that essentially we can embrace life. We can see life for what it is, and not this one-sided perspective as to the way we want it to be. Okay, so essentially pain and pleasure. So this side's associated with pleasure, this side's associated with pain. But when you own that life and the whole you is both pain and pleasure, then you're fully integrated. And that's when we have complete wellness, because we're not looking for a one-sided world. We're not just looking for, in this pursuit and this endless pursuit, which ends up going nowhere, of happiness, or endless pursuit of essentially could be endless pursuit of what's another, probably endless sort of pursuit of well, I guess it is happiness that we talk about a lot these days, isn't it? So, but happiness comes with sadness, as you've been, that you've had times where you've been happy and times which where you've been sad, and it's us, it's who we are, it's what life is, and it's owning both sides of us. So you'll see also, on this side, it's where essentially if you're feeling very proud of yourself, then you're very susceptible to looking down on others and wanting others to live in your values. And essentially that is where we puff ourselves up. We feel cocky, very proud. We can also be labeled narcissistic. And I guess the other side of that is we're looking up to people when we're feeling down. We feel that they're superior to us, and we inject their values into us. We feel inferior. And I mentioned sad before, it's negative, where we will say, perceive other people being mean to us, right? Essentially, when we own that, yes, we're mean and we're also nice, that's when you're loving you for who you are. So in order to help you transcend your thinking, so you've probably had a good chance to look through this. So when you're obviously in this authentic state, you have, you open your heart up, you're more loving, you can love others, you essentially, I mentioned the resilience, you've got more gratitude, you're more objective in your view of the world as opposed to being subjective, you're very fulfilled as opposed to being empty and unfulfilled. And you're willing to have delayed gratification, because you know that you're on a mission, and that essentially things will come the more you stay aligned to who you are. And essentially these other two sides is where we are feeling unfulfilled, because we're disowning a part of us and we seek fulfillment, external fulfillment. And that's that immediate gratification. So let's go to my funnel here. So I've got here in terms of essentially this is where we're wearing many personas, right? It's essentially we're putting on various masks in order to fit in, and we're not quite sure who we are. We just put on a mask, and we think, oh, maybe I'll be this person today. And essentially, it's going from many masks into the one you, and so it's a filtering down process. And in the middle here, we have this transcendent thinking that I was talking about. And essentially, that this is where we're going with this talk about in terms of how to transcend your health. You need to transcend your thinking away from that animal, that polarized thinking, that one-sided thinking. And so I went through some of these before, and it's essentially that it's that animal mind that's running us, running the emotional center, the desire center, the fear center. In order to transcend our thinking, we need to essentially start with reflective awareness. So if we're resenting someone, is understanding what we're resenting about them and looking within you as to when you've done what they're doing, what you dislike them doing, or what you resent them for doing. And look for times in your life when you've done it, and look for that many examples until you feel that emotion that you have, that resentment, that strong, it could be hate towards them, or just frustration, or just don't understand them, that sort of judgment that you're passing on that person, until you feel that completely dissolved by looking at the number of examples. So finding examples when you've done it in your life. Where were you? When was it? What you were doing? Who you did it to? And start owning it yourself. And it's essentially looking within and seeing when you've owned it. And so I do this every time. Whenever I catch myself judging or having a one-sided perspective of something, I then start asking myself, what's the other side? What am I missing, essentially? What is it, the missing parts that I'm not seeing the complete whole picture? Once you start asking these questions, you find the answers. And it's essentially you're filling up your bucket and you're becoming more fulfilled because you're owning parts of you that you're too proud to admit that you had in you. And essentially, it's the same as when you're feeling shameful and you're looking up to others. Essentially, you're too humble to own that trait within them, within you. It's just in a different form. So again, if we're feeling down and low and we're looking up to others and thinking that, they're amazing and all that, but they're living based on their values, and it's your values may not be exactly their values. And so there's no point in trying to be them, because you'll only be second to being them, because they're being the best version of themselves. So again, if you're looking up to someone, what is it that you're disowning in you? So look at that trait, that specific action or whatever that they do that you're not owning within you, and then look in your life where you have it. So you might have it in a different area. They might have it in physical looks or physical fitness or beauty or something, but then you may have that trait, that thing that you admire in an area. Maybe it's in finances. Maybe they're very wealthy in their physical appearance, but you're very wealthy in your net worth, so to speak. Or you might be very wealthy in your career. You might be having a very successful career and really escalating yourself up that corporate ladder, whereas they look great, but their career is pretty, I don't know, you could look, again, we don't want to be judging others, but I think you get what I'm saying here is essentially you have what you admire in them in a different area of your life. It could be socially, it might be your social influence. It could be within your family. Okay, so you might have a very wealthy connection with your family. And so you have that trait, but it's just in a different area. And it's the same, if you look at the things that we're looking down on people and we sort of dislike them for doing that, again, you've got it. You could be doing, you probably, and I find I always have owned everything. So even the most recent publicity in the media where you could easily judge these people for what they've done, but then I've looked in my life and I think, yeah, I've done that, absolutely done it. And I can see them as equal as opposed to seeing them as inferior. Okay. So essentially this process is not to get them down, like put them down, put them in a pit, or not to rise them up into a pedestal, or the same with you. It's essentially to get you equal with them. If you're comparing yourself to them, is to actually find where you have that specific thing that you admire in them or you resent in them in you, and to find it just enough so that you actually feel there's no judgment towards them, and you do it as much as they do, or you own it as you can completely own it. And essentially that's when you bring yourself to equanimity. You're equal, okay? And essentially, if you're feeling a bit shameful for something you've done, then you want to look at the benefits to the person that you did it to. You could look at the benefits to them, or if someone's done something to you which you're resenting, then look at the benefits to you for them doing what they did to you. Again, if you've got this lopsided perspective, it's all about balancing the perspective, okay? And so if you see something as if someone's done something extremely positive and you can only see that it's a positive thing that they've done for you, then look at the negatives, okay? If they've been extremely supportive, then has that increased your dependency, okay? And therefore you lose that independent thinking, okay? That independent or resourceful creative thinking, because excuse me, because essentially you've got something for nothing and you think, oh, that's great. But essentially then you've lost an element of creativity and finding resourceful ways around it when they're doing something for you. So essentially, or when they haven't done something for you, what's the benefit of them not doing anything for you? And as I said, it's exactly what I mentioned is the disadvantage of someone doing something for you is that essentially if someone doesn't do something the way you wanted it, then you get resourceful and creative in terms of finding other ways to get what you need. So again, there's always a balancing. And it's when we feel this emotion that we want to look for the balancing, look for what we're not seeing, okay? So it's essentially this process is reflective awareness, seeking the balance, start to see the other side of what we're not seeing, I guess the hidden order in what's happened, and start to see the complete picture. And essentially you can create more awareness around like your emotions. If you're feeling an emotion, then you've got an imbalanced perspective. So that's when you got to look to balance your perspective. And to do that, ask better questions of yourself. Ask what's missing. You know, again, I mentioned if it's something bad that you perceive that they've done to you, then what's the benefit of what they've done to you? Start looking for that, and that there are benefits, and you'll keep looking for the benefits until you feel that emotion just totally dissipate, and you don't no longer judge them for what they did to you. So, and it's the same as when you're judging someone else for something you don't like about them. Look for it within you, own it within you, and then you'll see yourself as equal. You'll be able to love you and love them. Okay. So that's my tips today. And essentially you'll become your authentic self. And this is where you're essentially a whole lot more loving. You see the world as a complete reflection of you. You love the world. You love everything that happens because you see the grace in what happens. You see it for what it is, as opposed to what you're wishing it or hoping it would be. You actually see the balance, the complete hidden order in terms of what's happened. And essentially you start responding proactively with thought. You can actually, as opposed to your emotions running your behavior, you are governing your emotions and you're transcending your behavior so that you actually, take an action that you've considered. So it's more thoughtful. It's more strategic. It weighs up the pros and cons. Okay. It's objective. It's balanced. So I hope that was really helpful today. I hope these diagrams helps you understand essentially what I'm sharing around. And this essentially is transcending your health at the same time, because it's balancing your emotions and it actually balances your physiology. Okay. Your emotions aren't running you. When you feel anger, your heart rate elevates, doesn't it? So your blood pressure goes up essentially. So if you go through this process, you can bring down your blood pressure, bring down your heart rate, and feel love, open up the heart and feel that love and that connection. And essentially, you'll be in a very poised, centered state, and your heart rate will be at its optimal heart rate variability. You'll have more gratitude and you'll attract more things to be grateful for. So I hope that really helps. I've really enjoyed sharing this with you today about what I've shared. Please pop them in the comments. I would love to answer them. If you'd like further explanation, please let me know what you'd like me to share in terms of that further explanation, what you're quite not understanding, and I'd love to offer you to join me on my Mind Mastery program, which is coming up on the 25th of March. It's in Sydney, but I'm also running the program in parallel online. So it's where you're going to actually get really an incredible understanding of this. You know, I've sort of touched the surface of the techniques, but you'll actually get a very intimate understanding. And there's a whole lot more questioning that will essentially help you get over any losses or, any perceived losses in your life. It will also help you, love anyone that you're resenting. And there's a whole process to take you through to help you see the hidden order in terms of what you weren't seeing before and to love them. So I'm running this My Mastery program. Would love you to join me. And yeah, you can also, if you're interested, then please send me a comment or send something through the chat function or email me with my email, anthony@me&my.wellness.com.au, and I can provide you more information. So hope you enjoyed it. I really do.
Podcast disclaimer. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it do not constitute medical, healthcare, or professional advice and are provided for general information purposes only. All care is taken in the preparation of the information in this podcast. Connected Wellness Proprietary Limited, operating under the brand me&my Health Up, does not make any representations or give any warranties about its accuracy, reliability, completeness, or suitability for any particular purpose. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it are not to be used as a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, psychiatric, or any other mental health care or healthcare in general. me&my Health Up recommends you seek the advice of a doctor or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Inform your doctor of any changes that you may to your lifestyle and discuss these with your doctor. Do not disregard medical advice or delay visiting a medical professional because of something you hear in this podcast. This podcast has been carefully prepared on the basis of current information. Changes in circumstances after publication may affect the accuracy of this information. To the maximum extent permitted by the law, me&my Health Up disclaims any such representations or warranties to the completeness, accuracy, merchantability, or fitness for purpose of this podcast and will not be liable for any expenses, losses, damages incurred, indirect or consequential damages or costs that may be incurred as a result of the information being inaccurate or incomplete in any way and for any reason. No part of this podcast can be reproduced, redistributed, published, copied, or duplicated in a form without prior permission of me&my Health Up.